I'm laughing at your face.
We are so serious right now.
You're trying not to be in the...
Monday night, and we're not letting a little coronavirus scare us from doing this show, but we've taken all the precautions. Welcome. It's the Yard Sign, the most politically important and relevant podcast in politics. It's Johnny Torres. Thank you so much for watching. We love you for watching, and again, we're here doing this show for you guys. We're going to talk about everything that's going on. A lot of insanity happening here locally, nationally. It's just craziness all around, and that's why we're here to do the show, to kind of deconstruct this and bring to you guys hopefully some sanity into the conversation. Let's go ahead and bring up the topics. Coronavirus, of course, is going to be pretty much the only topic of the day. We're just going to slice it just about every way we can. From the federal response, city, county, local responses, our social contract, pick apart exactly what that means, plans going forward, and of course insider trading being the last bit of congressional news not related to this virus that we saw come out of D.C. Again, we appreciate you so much for being on the show. We've got a big table of characters tonight. We've gone 4 wide at the table, so let's go ahead over there and do our introductions as we usually do about this time. Hey, you guys.
Hey.
Oh, now you want to go quiet, right? Not before the show, but all right. From left to right, ladies and gentlemen, that beauty is Michelle Sassouni, fiance to Mr. Jake Hoffman. How you doing, Michelle?
Doing great, trying to stay safe and stay healthy, as all of you should be too.
Yeah, welcome back to the show. Thank you for joining us. And next to him is Aníbal Cabrera. What's up, buddy?
Hey, sir. I'm glad to be back. Had a little bit of vacation with the wife, but now that everyone's on vacation, it's good to go. Good to be here.
Awesome. And again, that second beautiful face over there that belongs to the lady on the far left is Jake Hoffman. What's up?
Just surviving out here, trying to, first my health and then business health, and then try and speak some sanity into our local leaders. That's what I've been up to today.
Speak some sanity into an evil.
Yeah, we'll see.
And then, of course, trying to do like 3 million things at once here. We've got Chris VerKuilen joining us once again on the show. What's up, Chris?
How's it going? I am fired the hell up tonight. We've had some pretty serious things happen here in Tampa, internationally, nationally. I can't wait to talk about it. I'm super excited for tonight.
All right, well, we got a little bit of a wonky angle there, so I'm going to work on that while you guys start on tonight's topic. Again, coronavirus. Let's kick off with the federal response. We were hoping to have my buddy Chris Carter on. I'm going to try to figure that out while you guys kick off the topic. But, Trump's been saying a lot. Congress not able to get this bill passed for the stimulus package. So far, not looking good in D.C. What do you guys think?
At the moment, what's causing the biggest hamper in this situation is the fact that there are a lot of senators and state representatives that are actually in quarantine. So the numbers have really shifted on to try to get things out of committee or try to get them into debate. And in the Senate, you need 60 people. And right now, they're having really difficulties trying to get that number of Republicans and Democrats to agree on anything.
Yeah, I think that's really the biggest thing, right? Republicans and Democrats are not agreeing right now in a time when we need them to agree.
Correct.
Right? And we need them to make a decision and act swiftly about coronavirus, not about student loans or, all the other random pork that they're trying to throw into different bills and fight over. They need to do it about coronavirus, right? And they need to pass a bill. And now we're at the third, different variation at this point, trying to get, something passed. And again, Democrats keep trying to stifle what we're trying to put out there.
it's becoming very difficult to pass anything.
Yeah.
And I think McConnell's already said that if it doesn't pass today, it's going to be a few days before it passes again. So right now, in my mind, Democrats are causing the obstruction and are trying to put as much pork and even almost turning this into a new deal. You were talking about how some provisions were asking for companies to have, what is it called? For the airlines to report their emissions.
Yeah, emissions. I mean, their biggest thing right now is that right now the emissions are something that, again, right now the airlines do not have to deal with that, right? Like that's right now we're trying to save the airline industry, try and make sure that they can still operate, and we're over here trying to talk about whether that they need to either get, again, carbon taxes, report their emissions, like those types of things. Like, so now we're asking airlines that are all of a sudden they're not even like being able to function as a business. We're saying, okay, well, you also need to pay more taxes while you're doing it, basically. And that is really not helpful right now. That's not, again, they need to focus on trying to solve the problems at hand, solve the problems that coronavirus is presenting, and then go back and try and work on these other things. But that's not what we're getting.
Democrats are massively overreaching right now. What they're trying to, they're trying to get student loans covered in this. They're trying to get the student loan forgiveness, which we talked about last week. And they're trying to, as he said, they're trying to implement a carbon tax on, a part of this bill. This is not the time to do this. And I've listened to AOC talk about this yesterday on State of the Union with Jake Tapper. And she said, as far as the bill goes, that if she wants to get money into the hands of American workers and to every American, she actually said, which that's fine. Go ahead and do that. But what she said that specifically bothered me was that she said that if we're getting the money into the hands of workers, then no amount of money is too much. We can increase that as much as we need to. But if the money is going to bail out corporations, then she said, I think we already have too much. Well, that's ridiculous. If these people, like, yes, you might be able to give them a couple $1,000s for now, but if you don't bail out the corporations, they're not going to have jobs to come back to.
They can't phrase it as bail out the corporations, but they need to do things that are going to help the industries that will allow people to come back to work.
Yeah.
Precisely. I agree with you saying 100%. So even in the case that you give people money they can survive, if you make them go back to work for it, the economy starts again. If you give them money, they sit at home, do nothing. Like, I know we have to quarantine for a certain amount of time, but... And
we should be giving them money during that time because you're forcing them out of work.
And that's,
But the corporations during that time, they're in a complete economic free fall. And if you don't help out the employers, then, okay, great, you got, say, $5,000. Say you had $5,000 or even $10,000. Eventually, if these corporations, if it takes them a year to bounce back, especially small businesses,
economic sense, you want to come back to a job. You don't want to. You don't want to check for now. It's like winning the lottery. You don't quit your job on $10,000 lottery winnings. You don't. You go back to work. And
and again, they need to stop the bleeding, right?
Yes.
Because that they're causing. Because again, what you're going to hear through the rest of this hour from me, especially, is that I do take this seriously, right? I do take the health risk seriously that is occurring with the coronavirus and everything that's happening around us, right? But we are at a point where you need to balance the public policy and, again, the economy and people's livelihoods being affected in the same breath as, the lives that need to be saved in a hospital. And both of those things need to be taken into account, and nobody wants to have those hard conversations. And that's all I'm hearing from most of our leaders, both locally, statewide, and federally, that, again, nobody wants to have these hard conversations and have the responsibility of making those decisions. But that's where we're at.
Oh, no, people are having these conversations. They're talking about canceling capitalism and stopping the economy completely. And that is freaking out everyone on this table, all Republicans, a lot of Democrats and independents, because they know, yes, we're going to be on a slowdown or furlough for the next 2, maybe 3 weeks at the most. They're talking about doing this for months on end, which would cripple the entire economy. And we are not a $1 trillion, $2 trillion economy for the year. We are trillions a month. that we produce as a nation. And seeing these people continue to attack the American way and continue to attack the economy, saying that lives are important. We should be doing everything we can to make sure that the hospitals are fully staffed with all the equipment that they need. But to think that we should be planning for the future. What happens 2 months from now? What happens a month from now when everyone goes back to work?
This is what I wanted to get at. I wanted to read this quote today because it's really important to me and it's eye-opening, and it should scare the hell out of everybody watching this podcast, because people will think that, again, through the rest of this hour, that we may be overreacting and we're not sensitive or empathetic to what's going on around us. But this is what has come out of this, not just the socialist circles, but the left, the liberal circles. They're coming out and saying, this is a direct quote from Astra Taylor. She's a filmmaker and author, and this was on Politico yesterday. It says, America's response to coronavirus pandemic has revealed a simple truth. So many policies that our elected officials have long told us were impossible and impractical were eminently possible and practical all along. In 2011, when Occupy Wall Street activists demanded debt cancellation for student loans and medical debt, they were laughed at many times in the mainstream media. In the intervening years, we have continued to push the issue and have consistently been told that the demands are unrealistic. Now we know that the rules that we've lived under were unnecessary and simply made society more brittle and unequal. All along, evictions were unavoidable. The homeless could have been housed. Shelters in government buildings, water and electricity didn't need to be turned off for people behind on their bills. And then sick leave should have been a right for all workers. Paying your mortgage late did not need to lead to foreclosures. Debtors could be granted relief, and President Donald Trump has put a freeze on interest federal loans, and Andrew Cuomo has paused all medical and student debt to New York State. So while we're discussing suspending collection or outright canceling student loans, it's clear that in a crisis the rules don't apply, which makes you wonder why there are rules in the first place. This is an unprecedented opportunity to not just hit the pause button and temporarily ease the pain, but to permanently change the rules so that untold millions of people aren't so vulnerable to begin with.
And untold trillions of dollars are going to be used, which then will devalue the entire economy.
Real quick though, hold on.
I want you to unpack what was just said, because that is the
but Jake, please,
right
for anybody who just tuned in, please mention the source of who you, because I don't want people to think that we're espousing that stuff.
No, I'm not.
And that we're supporting that stuff.
I'm trying to get people. Yeah, if you just tuned into our live stream, thank you.
We're not socialists.
But this is from Astra Taylor. She's an author. This was on Politico yesterday. But this is a more concise. I know it was a little bit long, but it's a concise view of what they're trying to do on the left to us right now, where they're trying to instill forever policies. Yes. Right. This is what happened. They're back. When there are other crises, the expansion of government, the expansion, the cancellation of debt. All of these things are not temporary solutions that they're going for. These are long-term.
This is a crystallization of their attitude.
Yeah.
They think that this is a carte blanche opportunity to override the checks and balances we have in our government, to override legislation, to override the will of the people, to get what the hell they want because people are scared, and it's
upsetting everybody.
It's right. Going on Facebook, going to other chat rooms and talking to people, you get so frustrated and so upset because of why not just get rid of the rule of law? Why not just get rid of all issues when it comes to these things? Why not just get rid of it completely? Because these are fundamental building blocks on our economy. And if you continue to move the way that they would want us to move, then it's going to be a nightmare. We
would end up in a situation like Venezuela or Zimbabwe did, where you have massive amounts of inflation, and then you end up with $100 billion note showing that the currency is completely devalued and people lose faith in the currency.
But there's, again, talks about you're talking about socialized housing in these conversations, right? Like socialized healthcare. Literally everything. Right now there is a large group of people around this country.
It is a wish list
that want to be completely taken care of from the government, and with no concern on where that money comes from, what it means, what money is at that point. It's just the conversations we're getting into are very dangerous. That's all I really wanted to bring out of that.
That's the exact thing. With you saying that they have no care where the money comes from or what backs it or how it works. So me saying that there's $100 billion note, I'm sure there's leftists out there that hear that and go, so let there be $100 billion note. Why does that matter? And they don't get it. They don't understand these basic principles. And what they really don't understand is what they don't think about that frustrates me to no end is they don't look past a year, 2 years. If you look into the future, 30 years, or even just look down the end, think through your plan completely. If you pause mortgages, which I understand that right now is an emergency crisis, and the government should be doing something to help.
Something to help the problem they've caused.
The problem, yes, the problem that they've caused. But if you just say like, oh, well, why do we ever have to pay mortgages? Well, that money comes from somewhere.
They don't make a connection to
the mortgage connects to the bank.
Tangible items to be a product of work and a product of someone having to be compensated for that work. It's all disconnected. They don't understand essential economics.
And that's why they're so upset with giving the money to the corporations, because they don't understand the concept of, well, you should just give it to the people. No, these companies have to be around a month from now. The airplane companies have to be around a month from now.
And I also do think that now I will say it does need to come with provisions, right? Because I don't think that the money should be given just carte blanche to some of these corporations, because, like Mark Cuban came out and said, like, you can't just give them, a bunch of money and allow them to do stock buybacks, because that's really not the right move for them, because you're essentially taking taxpayer money and bailing out, people with the stock situation. But the problem is that, again, you do need this money to make it down to the worker, and it needs to go towards, again, keeping and retaining employees and in the future hiring. But, there should be provisions. It shouldn't just be free money at some point. But again, there's a big problem here, and temporarily we're going to need, to do something to help people out. But, again, if you're going to try to say it needs to all go to people and not corporations, again, you need to, at some level, give it to businesses that are going to be able to hire the people afterwards.
As long as, Chris, are we stressing you out with the need for you to have
I just wanted to make sure you guys weren't going to take it from me. It's very valuable. This is going to make my life much more
comfortable.
In the immediate future.
I will say I've been stocking up on New York Times newspapers just in case things go wrong. So
hey Johnny, can we get a couple of graphics up? The ones of the bill that it's.
Oh, I'm not ready for that yet.
All right, that's fine. I'm gonna go ahead and list through a couple of the things they're trying to cram into. All right, so the reason you're not getting a check today and you're in need is because they want the following in the legislation, and they think it's connected somehow, or they don't care. Same-day voter registration for federal elections. So that gives the state, county, whoever, no chance to verify if you're a voter, if you're a legal voter, if you voted twice. So, stupid. Airline carbon emissions offsets and goals. That's what that's what you have to wait for coronavirus relief for, because they want that in there. And improving consumer information regarding release of greenhouse gases from flights. Stupid. I don't need to explain that. Modification of special rules for minimum funding standards for community newspaper plans. Okay? So Tampa Bay Times and the local Indian Rocks Gazette need to have money because you're suffering from coronavirus right now.
It's becoming a Christmas tree of they're just putting whatever they want.
Because shows like this are overtaking the newspapers. And you guys think I'm joking. They're trying to save the newspapers.
America needs to know this stuff.
This isn't, it's fine if you want to save the newspapers. This isn't the time for it. This is not the time for it at all.
You don't put people under duress to do this kind of something that's very important, and then give them, the ultimatum that something stupid like that has to get put into it.
If it doesn't pass today, I think it's not going to pass until Thursday or Friday at the latest. And even then, I don't think it's going to get passed either.
Oh, it gets better.
I can't believe it.
Yeah, I don't think the Senate should have. Again, if it's this bad, don't pass it. Honestly, show that you have some kind of backbone and don't let it happen. Yes, people are suffering, but now we're almost 20 days into some kind of furlough of the situations, starting from almost a week to almost 2 weeks now. It's gonna get worse in regards to people are going to stop working and everything's coming to a grounding.
People are not stopping working, by the way. People are getting fired. There's a big difference between stopping working. There is a large group of the population that would love to continue on with at least semi-normal activities, but again, their companies are ceasing to operate, so now they are laid off. And I said this, I think, a little bit earlier last week, was that right now, these are just my numbers, right? I'm just gonna throw out some numbers here for you. I think that we're going to see at least 10 million people unemployed within the next few months. And that is a low number, to be honest. And again, in comparison to, you don't want to try and compare human lives to lost jobs. But at the end of the day, you're going to end up seeing, like, I would say at least 10 million people losing their jobs. And then that is causing the economy to go down between 20 to 30% in quarter two.
There are people that
we didn't do that during the Depression.
There are people that have predicted a 50% decrease in the economy.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I
not
know,
50,
but I know, but I've heard
20
of
to
that
25%. That puts us in Great Depression and World War II numbers over a virus that currently has 12,000 people dead across the country. Now, again, I take it seriously.
Not dead. No case. Not 12,000 dead.
Sorry, 12,000 cases. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, it's not even that bad. The point is that, like, again, there is a situation here.
573 passed. By the way.
573 people. So again, most counties in this country do not have it, but we have orders to shut down. That's why, again, you're seeing cities like New York and LA shut down because they've got these dense populations. And I guess we can kind of get ourselves into the city and state, response to this versus what they've been doing federally.
I want to say one more thing regarding what you're saying. So regarding the value of human life versus the economy, okay? There's a statistic that not a lot of people know about called the quality adjusted life year. It's essentially the value of a human life for the course of a year. When you have to make trade-offs, okay? So imagine you have 20 first grade kids who can't go to school, therefore their earning an income is delayed for another year. The parents of those kids not being able to provide for those kids, so the kids suffer for the next year, okay? That's got a value to it, okay? So at a certain point, you have to say, all right, this 81-year-old person dying a year early or destroying the opportunity for these families.
Yeah, again, and they're tough conversations, and I mean, like, people don't want to have those type of tough conversations.
That's exactly the thing, is that people they see what's happening in Italy, where they're having to make the decision to anyone that's over the age of 80 doesn't get a ventilator, doesn't get the ICU.
Those are tough conversations. We are nowhere near that in this country.
But that's kind of the thing, is that we don't want to have that conversation. We don't want to have to make those choices.
Well, let me say this.
So I understand in flattening the curve to try to prevent us from doing that, but at some point, that conversation maybe won't have to be had about who lives and who dies, but we probably should be having that conversation anyway, so that in the event that the crisis does get worse, we are ready and know what to do. Because my biggest issue with the way this has happened is that we have not had a plan. The government has not.
Zero.
I mean, the fact that you think that we don't have enough masks for everyone in the country, but they can print $300 million in the blink of an eye. But it takes them, I mean, I don't think masks are that difficult to make. Maybe I'm wrong. But that should have been something. We saw SARS happen in China. We saw other diseases occur over the past 10 years. We should have been prepared, and we weren't.
And that's not administration, that's CDC. Like the departments that this is their job to constantly be building up the reserves, to constantly be building up ventilators and making sure that we have enough. And that's the thing. We have technically a very healthy society where we don't need 5% of beds per 100 per 1,000.
Well, actually, if you look at,
we're doing pretty decently when it comes to that. Read that off.
So if you look at the statistics on hospital ICU beds per capita with the U.S. compared to other countries. So let's start with China. They have 3.6 ICU beds per capita per 100,000 inhabitants of the country. It's not surprising that we have a high death rate in China because of that. When we get to other numbers, you'll kind of see why. The UK is 6.6 ICU beds per 100,000. Okay, we'll get into Italy. 12.5 ICU beds, twice as many as the UK and 4 times as many as China. The United States has 34.7 ICU beds per 100,000. So when you see people comparing the U.S. to Italy, being like, oh, Italy's having all these problems, we have way more capacity than they do.
Well, and we have a real medical system, which everyone wants to complain about right now, but Italy has, guess what, nationally run healthcare. It's not going so well for them right now. We have the most advanced healthcare system in the world. For all of its flaws, it exists, and we have a lot of innovation. And so, again, I stress the seriousness of this, but I think that, again, overall, it's being overblown to the point of what we're seeing right now.
I don't think it's being overblown, and I think we do need to wrap this up. But at the end of the day, there are huge clusters that are happening in New York and LA. That's why the government and the military has sent medical ships that have 1,000 plus beds in them. They're sending 800 nurses and doctors. That's what the government's responsibility is for. And we, as Floridians, we all know, every season we go through hurricane season, and what happens? You're told you are meant to survive on your own, your household, for a week. You need to have enough supplies during hurricane season
Yeah.
at any time to be able to supply on your own. And then it's the responsibility of the city and then the county and then the state to make sure that's how it organizes. We're not supposed to be crying to Washington just because we're having an issue in Hillsborough County. Miami-Dade, there's a cluster. They need more medical support from the federal government. But Hillsborough County and what's happening right now does not need that.
All right, so we obviously took a deep dive there into the federal stuff, and I want to try. We were going to bring in Chris Carter, who's coming to us live from D.C., see if we can pull this off. It's something new we're trying. Chris, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Hang on one second. I'm having trouble hearing you. Hang on.
Stand by.
There you go. I can hear you now.
I'm right here. I don't know if your audience can hear me, but I've been listening to the whole show.
Yeah. Well, you're there in the heart of D.C. You were telling me how it's pretty much a ghost town there when it comes to, just not only the subway system, the infrastructure, but everything else going on down there. Go ahead and give us the temperature in the room, and then, tell us kind of what the feeling is behind the scenes on what's happening with Congress.
Well, right now, where I am, I'm actually right up the street from NIH and Walter Reed. So it's a pretty busy area, the suburb of Washington, right across the DC line in Maryland. In Rockville, so this is a very, very federally oriented town. Now, when the Fed shut down, what we've seen is just a shift in culture. I mean, I've been hearing people describe it as weird. I mean, the metro's out my back door here. I can go out there and get on the subway. There's like nobody on. I mean, I've never ever seen it like this.
Yeah.
The grocery stores have food, and they're busy during the day. But at the same time, when you look and you kind of look at some of the parks, it's not like New York City where everybody's congregating in parks. It's more of what I hear what's going on in New York, and ironically.
Well, and even that, they're looking to shut that down like they shut down the beaches here in Florida, right?
Right. I heard they just canceled school in Virginia for the rest of the year, so that just came in tonight.
Yeah.
It's done. So Maryland will probably be the same. District Maryland, school in Virginia, District Maryland, and the DMV, all the schools pretty much do the same thing, just keep everything even.
Well, I think Education Commissioner Corcoran, at least here in Florida, says that they're going to try to finish out the school year. Real quick, because we're thanks again to BizPack Review, Conservative News Today, who's carrying the program. We're working on with them on improving the show here. Thank you so much to you, Chris, for joining us live from DC. Real quick, you were following the Trump press conference, the last one that just happened right before we came on the air. What did you gather from that? I mean, of course, seems like there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of this is minute to minute changes, updates. What did you gather from the president's last press conference?
Well, I've been monitoring it actually, and it's still going on right now as we speak. Some of the things the president elaborated on is in regard to these malaria drugs that they've seen,
Yeah.
these hot spots. They say it's really having an effect on treating coronavirus. The president moved on to then say the administration, inherited this old system. He keeps harping on that, and that it's been a tremendous learning process for all of them, which I truly believe it has. I mean, when they talk about shutting down the government and the economy for months,
Yeah.
the president outright said that they're looking at weeks, not months. And then he
Right.
went on to talk about some of these hotspots. Florida, he did mention. He said there's a lot of things happening in Florida. He also mentioned New Jersey, where he said New Jersey, they're working on something special. And he mentioned the governor of New Jersey, Bill Murphy, which this guy is, he's really something else. He's a real, he's a liberal at heart. The president mentioned his name. There had to be some type of.
Yeah. Well, and he tried to make even Cuomo look good by sending the Navy hospital there, the big ship, over there to dock in New York to give them additional hospital rooms.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's kind of a testament to the president and
Yeah.
being able to bring people together, because some of these people that are his enemies, he's trying to make it work for the country. One thing he did say was that, they're watching these hotspots. The main spots now, Washington, California, and New York.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to go to New York tomorrow. There is no way I'm going near New York City right now. And
Yeah.
that's where a lot of the cases are. But since they're also going to be watching seniors heavily, and I heard you guys talking about the bill earlier, the stimulus package.
Yeah.
What's so interesting about it is that not only did they try to sort of slip in a Green New Deal, like in the bill, they want to give you $10,000 off your student loan.
Right.
They want to give $1 billion back for cell phones for low-income consumers, so they're basically Obama phones. And they want to make sure there's increased usage of minority banks. They're trying to pull all of this stuff in the way of, the minorities or whatever diversity agenda they want to pursue, when they don't realize there'll be none of this stuff left.
Yeah.
If the union doesn't get off its ass and get it together immediately.
That's right. Well, hey, Chris, thank you so much. Doing a little pilot run here with this, but we hope to have you back on the show on a more regular basis to give us more insight from D.C. Chris Carter from Livecast USA. Check him out, doing a lot of great political work, again, from the heart of our nation's government, our nation's capital. Thank you so much, Chris, for coming on the show. Let's go ahead and reset our topics for today. Again, we just dug through the federal response here locally in Tampa Bay. We had a big press conference where they had the emergency council meet and decide on whether or not they were going to be shutting down the city as a whole and maybe even the county. You guys, it was contentious. It was a mess. The mayor very unhappy right now. Let's go ahead and pick apart that conference call, because I think it's incredibly important to at least what's happening here in the Tampa Bay area.
Yeah. So what I'll say about that is, again, if you weren't on the emergency policy group conference call today that we had around Tampa, it's something that is probably happening around your local government too. Like if you're listening from anywhere outside of Hillsborough County, they're having conversations right now on whether or not to shut down the city, basically, right? And curfews and things like that, and like what are the measures we're going to be taking. And if there is one takeaway from that call, it is that they are fully inept to do their job, that they have no preparation at all, that there is no plan from either your local board of county commissioners, from your mayors, from your Congress people. I mean, I will say I was on this call today and I got to speak with our Congresswoman Kathy Castor, and I asked her point blank, what numbers are we looking for to return to normalcy? What are we trying to measure? If we're shutting everything down right now? What is the goal? Is it the goal to get this many tests? Is the goal to get this many people, out of infection, or to get this, whatever it is? Like, what are we trying to do here? Because if you're going to shut things down, you need to tell us why and what you're trying to do. Have a plan. And what she said to me was, I can only be described as like a fumble and then like they basically hung me up off the phone. And so like
you're asking the hard ones.
They're asking the hard question. Yeah, too hard of a question. Too hard of a question is like, what are we doing here? And again, it should be scary to you because they are not prepared locally at all. And then again, you listened to all of our county commissioners talk about how like they had no idea what was going on. Everybody that is a CEO of a major hospital like Baycare and Tampa Bay,
they sounded so much more put together.
Of course they were. They run a hospital. So they have a real job.
So we had TGH, Advent, St. Joseph's, Baycare, and if I'm missing someone else, please let me know. All of those CEOs sounded so put together.
Yeah.
They knew what the responses were going to be. They knew where their next steps can be. And they were basically asking this emergency policy group, give us what you tell us.
Just
what you
give us
want
supplies.
Us to, basically, no, tell us what you want to do, what you want us to do, and we will do it. But you first have to get to that point. And it went to like 3 or 4 motions, and then they're back. They're like, but we still haven't been told if we're allowed to use the emergency kits.
Yeah, they almost ended the entire call, a 2-hour call. They almost ended it without discussing testing, and they had to stop them and be like, guys, we didn't get to testing. You guys argued over a curfew and nobody understood what, like, it was a mess. Go back and listen to it if you have 2 hours to spare.
That's frustrating for me because, when you look at both China and South Korea, the way that they were able to actually manage and bring down new infections, it was not through quarantining and somewhat through quarantine, but not through complete isolation. but through testing, being able to actually test people and test patients and figure out who has it and who doesn't. I mean, my brother's out in California, and one of his clients, he went to the hospital with a fever saying, I think I have coronavirus, because he was in the hospital not that long ago, and they didn't test him. They sent him home.
Well, what
with a
I will
fever.
say to that,
Yeah, there's a
what
lot
I will
of
say to
things
that too.
caveats to
Yeah.
that.
What we had a conversation just a few hours ago with doctors that work at a local hospital, and they said, we have people who have tested positive for this virus. We sent them home. I don't know how, you can listen to the media and get hysteric over the situation, but there are people testing positive for the coronavirus, and they are being sent home by doctors because it is so mild.
But they're being sent home by doctors. Yes, for them to do a self-quarantine.
Sure,
And
sure.
what's happening.
That's what you should be doing.
And what was on the call was that you need to call, and this is what Hillsborough County and the hospital people have told us. You need to call a particular number, tell them what your symptoms are, who you've been in contact, everything else, and they will let you know if it is appropriate for you to come in and get a test.
But
Because
everybody
there's
wants a test right now.
But there's not enough tests to be able to go around in Hillsborough County.
And I understand that, and that's fine. But that's why when Jake asked that question about what are we looking for, I mean, are we waiting for us to? I thought that the plan was until we have enough tests and enough masks to get out to people.
There
but
has
when
to be
they
a
don't
metric.
Yeah, but when they don't even know that.
It has to be acceleration rate of infection. It has to be number of cases. It has to be some kind of measurable quantity in order to do this very serious business of shutting the entire city down indefinitely. And it's so politically expedient to be like, shut everything down. You can look golden that way. There's no there's no effort involved in making that hard decision. There's no hard thought involved in that.
It feels like they're doing it almost like, it's like New York did it and everyone applauded, and then LA did it and all the Democrats and the media applauded.
Mind you, New York's numbers doubled overnight.
Well, the numbers, don't mean anything, though, because the numbers are based off of tests when you're allowed to get a test when they really think you have it.
Right.
I mean, we're still working completely on just BS numbers. There's no other way of saying it. Nobody's working with accurate data.
Also, you probably got it a week or two ago. It took that long for you to get symptoms, and then it took even longer to get the test.
There's so much inaccuracy here, and the decision making based off of we're making decisions based off of nothing, and we're going nowhere with any sort of plan. Because again, at the highest levels, when you talk to people in Congress and you ask them and you say, what are we like? You want to shut us down for 15 days? Okay, what about 15 days? And they just say, well, it's going to be a really hard couple weeks. We'll reevaluate. That doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything.
Well, and the perfect example is that a lot of these congressmen, let's just say because they're obviously of high visibility, that have been diagnosed, have been told that they have the coronavirus or COVID-19, are asymptomatic. Because they've gotten it at such an early stage, they're not showing any of the symptoms yet, and so they're able to go and quarantine themselves.
Or unless you're Rand Paul, who decides he's awaiting a test and decides to go swimming in the Senate pool and work out at the Senate gym and go to lunch with Mitt Romney and a couple other
little
senators.
licking doorknobs.
And it's just like, and he, of all people, he's a physician. He's a physician.
Right.
Like, how are you? You're the one person that should recognize the seriousness of this, and to be so brash and just put other people's health at risk, that's just, it's abhorrent. It's honestly abhorrent. And it's like, I hate that behavior. And if you do think that you have, we might be sitting here saying that it's really not all that bad if they're able to just send people home. But if you do it is highly contagious. So if you have it or you think you have it, by God, don't go outside. Don't see people.
But that's the purpose of the That's why we have shut down a large portion of the economy to make sure that we are.
And so for a senator to not abide by that makes him seem better.
Forget we're on the show right now, guys.
We are flushing it out. The system is going to work. We are flattening the curve. If we all are doing what we're supposed to do, which is self-isolate,
this is the problem.
Social distancing.
First off, we're not sitting 6 feet apart. Unfortunately, the cameras will not allow us to move all 6 feet apart. But the point is that, no, people are acting like this is that movie Bird Box. Have you seen Bird Box?
No.
Okay, it's a terrible movie. It's probably the worst movie that we've had in years. It's on Netflix with Sandra Bullock.
Of course he's on.
Go watch Bird Box. People are acting like it's that, where you can't go outside and look at the sun. That's what people are acting like. You can go outside and look at the sun. You can be outdoors. That's why I don't understand, when you shut down public beaches, I understand when you have too many people clustered together, but you can go outside. You can be outdoors in the sun, in salt water and things like that. You can't be 6 feet from somebody if they're coughing and sneezing on you. But people are acting like you cannot come outdoors.
Also, I actually saw 2 people fishing on Gandy Beach today get sent home by Pinellas County Sheriff's Office alone. Not two people together, two people alone.
No.
in separate
Here, let me
places.
give you the better example, which is what I fear is what Jane Castor wants to do. Because if a police chief knows how to do anything, it's how to lock people up, right? And so there were two friends who casually came across each other on the street in California, and this is a true story. They were stopped by the police department. They were charged with a misdemeanor and given a $400 ticket for not adhering to whatever the social distancing rules are that have come down in California. $400 ticket for saying hi to your friend that you saw
I just want to say
on the street.
I just want to say this because this was a question that, again, that nobody wanted to answer on the phone, is that if you put in shutdown orders, what happens to people when they go outdoors? Are you going to start throwing them in jail? Are you going to start ticketing them?
Are we going to have roadblocks on Del Mabry and
we-
Bayshore?
like-
That's what I want to see. If they're going to go there, I want to see roadblocks everywhere.
No, I don't want to see any of that.
No, but that's the ridiculous of where this conversation is going.
I just know
you
that,
want
like-
everyone to stop doing what they're doing. Then you're going to take resources from the police and the sheriff when they should be doing other things, and you're going to be making
there's nothing
this
for them
into
to
a
do.
bigger
No
There's
one's
more
around,
important
but
things than quarantining people? Forcibly?
No, the point is that when it comes down to enacting some of the things they want to enact, like a curfew and going home, like who is going to come and enforce that? Are the police going to come and put you back in your homes if you're just you want to go to your business? Like we were talking about this before. Like the discussion of a curfew keeps coming up when they're shutting businesses down and telling people to go home after 10 p.m. Well, you know what? There's a ton of people that work after 10 p.m. and a ton of people that are in also essential industries after 10 p.m. Just because they're all 60-something years old, sitting at a county commission's, table and being like, oh, well, nobody's up from, 11 p.m. to 5 a.m.
Yeah.
If you stay out past 11 p.m., how are you going to get early bird breakfast at Cracker Barrel?
Well, you can't get any of that
Cracker Barrel's
now.
not open
but
to begin with.
but
Or
the
you
point,
can- yeah.
but no, my point is that
Take out.
when you talk about doing those kind of things, how are you going to enforce it? Because that's a real question. And
what's
I will tell you right now.
what's terrifying is that when you talk about how are they going to enforce it, when the federal government is talking about suspending habeas corpus,
It's scary.
so that you could be arrested for leaving your home or trying to go to your business. You're telling me you're going to arrest me for trying to go to my own business and then hold me indefinitely without a trial? Without a trial. And just, I'm
the
just sitting in
DOJ, what the
jail?
DOJ suggested this week, that the article came out about them being able to suspend constitutional rights, and that is what we're jumping into different topics right now because we're getting into the social contract conversation, which I'm fine with getting into because we've led there. Is that we are towing a very fine line between public safety and public health and infringing on civil liberties, and when you start to give into the civil liberties debate, it may never come back. And that's why it was so important to listen to that quote from earlier in this show, is that, again, once you cross the line, it's very hard to go back. And so we need to stand strong as Republicans. Again, you might truly believe this is the worst health crisis we're ever going to see in our lives. We need to do everything we can to stop it, but we need to be very conscious about what we're talking about when it comes to breaking down civil liberties.
We had a lot of Republican lawyers very adamant about, we can't really tell you what to do until we see it. It's almost like we'll know that it's gone too far when we see it, and we don't want to get to that point. And that's why I had a huge problem with the simple fact of the stay-at-home, stay-at-shelter ordinance that they're pushing, because who is out now besides getting food, going to their jobs that need to go? And the bigger conversation is what are you trying to do? If you're trying to buy more time to get more ventilators, to build more hospitals, to make more beds, that's one thing. 2-3 weeks at the most.
Then you should be able to
tell. That's the thing.
You should be able to tell people, we are keeping you in for 15 days so that we can get to 1 million beds.
Yeah.
If you can tell me that, then we can all look
Then
around
I'll
at each
go,
other and
okay.
go, we're doing this because our goal is to add 1 million more beds. That's the goal. But if you can't do that, then what are we doing?
So to what you're saying, as far as if we can justify quarantining and justify a curfew of some sort, I think there should be two guiding principles in people's everyday life. Do your best to minimize infection. Do your best to keep 6 feet apart. Whatever guiding principle. You can still live life without a curfew, without being locked in your home, and do those things. We can still have both at the same time.
And we have to have faith in individuals, which I understand why we don't. Because when you see senators like Rand Paul,
I have more faith in
not
individuals than
doing
faith in
those
our
things.
government, especially after listening to them talk on a phone call today.
I agree with
I
that.
have a lot more faith in individuals doing this, and this was the verbiage that came out on the phone call was self-reliance, self-responsibility. It's keeping people home with their children, making sure grandma and grandpa are okay in the retirement home, making sure everyone is good. The social contract gives you a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks at the most, of everyone saying, you know what, let's make sure everyone's okay.
And when
let's
you-
make sure we have all the responsibility.
When
But
you
the
push too far, they
and
stop
that's what, and that's why I
adhering
tell
to it.
people all the time, you think this is going to be a problem now. 3 weeks from now, we're still in the same place. All hell is going to break
Yes,
loose
because
because
no
the
one's-
social
everyone's
contract
gonna
is
give
going
up.
to get broken
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you have done nothing.
Because right now, this is one of the most important things I think I'm going to say on this podcast today is that right now, the way that I see the divide in this country is not Republican and Democrat, actually, despite some of the stuff that's happening at the federal level. It's not like men and women or like young and old and things like that. What I'm seeing is that there is a split between people who are in a comfortable position in their life and people who are not. And what I mean by that is that the people who are advocating for full shutdown, lockdown, shut down the economy, the health is the most important thing. Those people are elderly. They already have a fixed income. Maybe they're retired. They're people who work in public health or work in any sort of public position where their paycheck is guaranteed. And then it's, again, younger people who are maybe still in college and they don't need to worry about that yet. And then there's the rest of us who have a business or have a job, or maybe especially if you work in the hospitality industry, or people who have to go about the rest of their lives. And those people are trying to toe the line again of, okay, public health versus being able to continue my life. Because again, if you're comfortable where you are right now, of course you're advocating for all the health. Like your 85-year-old grandma, she's freaking out. Understandably, right? Health is more important to her than the economy. But again, your young professionals, your young conservatives that we have right now, like, we're more concerned about the economy because, again, we have another 50 to 70 years left to live. And again, we don't want to ruin the country over the health issues that we have right now. So that's where I see the split. And, again, you guys can have your take on that if you have something to chime in, but that's where I see the line is divided, is based off of where you are in a comfortable place in life versus if you need to continue working, basically.
Oh, I agree.
Well-
And so that's really deep. That's actually a real excellent analysis. And it wasn't always that way. Everyone was on the safe side a week ago, but 6 days ago, 5 days ago, 2 days ago, people are starting to freak out. They want to know a plan now, and that's an excellent analysis. I can't top that.
Thank you.
Well,
I try
real
to say that all
quick,
the time.
No, you don't.
again, thanks to Big Pack Review, Conservative News Today for carrying our program. What's the Yard Sign? The most important and relevant podcast in politics. We appreciate you watching. Of course, not a whole lot much else to talk about other than the coronavirus and the effects it's having on us federally, locally. We want to thank everybody in the comments section. Anthony says that he has to carry a letter around showing that he can travel in public because he's an essential worker. And that's eventually what I think some of these bureaucrats are wanting to get to. And look, Jake, you made a great point, which is you're right, and it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. If you are someone who works in the government, someone who works in, be it Tallahassee or be it County Center, you're getting a paycheck, and you're cool, you're golden. And the fact that the mom and pop restaurant down the street's going to go out of business, you don't really care. And the truth is that there are going to be hundreds, and I say thousands, of small businesses that are going to go out of business because of this thing.
10 million
especially
is my
if you
guess.
shut down.
10 million people unemployed is what I would guess.
Especially if you do a
won't say that.
full-blown shutdown like Jane Castor wants to do here in Tampa.
We as a group need to understand that we know the people that are going to make this decision. We know the names of the people on the emergency policy group, and those individuals need to be called out. And
And by the way, that's just Hillsborough County. Again,
Yeah.
first off, thank you to our new audience, our conservative news today. I love you guys. Like, we are reading all of the comments from last week. We were having a great time, and we're gonna do the same this week when we get off the show. We love this new audience. You guys have been so great to us, even 99% of you. But, again, like you said, like, there are people here that are, that do watch this show. I know they watch this show.
Yes.
And I can tell you what, like, we're going to be walking into the city council meeting or the county commissioners meeting, and I'm going to give you my fines because I'm not going to stop going out and doing essential business because we shut down or decide to put a curfew at 10 p.m. I mean, you're going to have to deal with that. That's a real decision that you're making. You need to weigh those decisions versus your, again, your health issues.
And something that, they're talking about health issues, but they're also, so the health issue though, that's the only one that's taking precedent is coronavirus, which I understand. But there are people like me who have health conditions, and I rely on getting an infusion every 4 to 6 weeks. Well, that has been completely shut down because it's considered a non-emergency procedure. So I'm considered doing pretty well for my condition. But there are people that are much worse off than me that wear masks all the time anyways because of how sick they are. And for them, even for myself, but like our quality of life will be completely destroyed if they can't go and get their necessary treatment.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point because we've also suspended like dentistry,
Yeah.
right? So if you have a terrible infection in your tooth right now, like you can't go into the dentist to get that fixed. So like we are putting the coronavirus above other medical conditions, which again, I understand why we're doing it, but tell it to somebody who has got an infected tooth right now and they can't get into a dentist.
I guess my thing is like that, I get it for the ones that have to be, hospitalized and have to be on ventilators.
Yeah, elective surgeries. I understand that.
No. I'm saying for the coronavirus patients that really need to be on ventilators in the hospitals. But when you're sending people home, you're just saying, okay, you have it, go home. But then there's people out there that are much sicker than people that even have the coronavirus because they have their typical health conditions and they're very sick all the time and they need to get treatment. But because they're not about to die, then they're just stuck. They're completely stuck. And then no one's foreseeing either how when the doctors are allowed to practice again, they're going to be completely overbooked and overworked, and people aren't going to be able to get their doctors, see their doctors or get their medication.
This is a knee-jerk reaction, seeing what's happening in Italy, seeing what happened in China, and then not seeing what happened in South Korea of how they did not shut the whole system down.
You haven't heard that in the news, have you?
No, and they were able to flatten the curve. They were able to keep things moving and going forward. Children were still able to go to school. My conversation is this: we at the local level, we can touch our leaders who are about to shut down Hillsborough County.
No, we can't touch them because we have to stay 6 feet away.
We can email them, and we know these people individually. We've met them multiple times. We know them by name. We've gone to parties and events with them. You do that, you damage the bottom 20% of the economy. Those people that are in most need, that do not know what they're doing next week. If Tampa is not going to write me a check tomorrow for shutting down the whole system,
well, speaking of Tampa writing you a check, we have an extra $300 million that's sitting around in a giant pot for all for transportation. I hope that the city leaders are ready to tap into your reserves, because if you shut the city down and you tell businesses that they can't go out and actually do business, then you better be tapping that $300 million that you've collected from us, that you taxed us as the highest tax county in the state right now. Then that's going to have to come back to the small business owners who can't go to work.
Having a curfew makes no sense. Shutting the city down makes no sense. See, you of all people know that a broken clock is right at least twice a day. Anyways, so that's what we're all trying to say. Curfew is not going to stop anything. There's too many people transporting in and out of the city. Having a complete shutdown will do nothing but damage even more people. And yes, the argument is that are we going to save lives? If you don't give me a plan,
this is the thing about saving lives. This is the biggest thing about saving lives, because the one thing you're going to keep continuously hear is this flatten the curve. You've already said it 3 times this podcast, right? Like flatten the curve, flatten the curve, flatten the curve. Well, guess what happens at the end of the curve? The same amount of people get the virus. Like, I don't think people understand that. Like, just because you've spread out, and I get why we're doing it. I get the theory behind why we're doing it. It's so that, again, we're not totally spiked over a single day or a single week and overloading the system.
Do you agree with
people
doing
don't,
it?
Well, yeah, I understand taking provisions. And again, we've been railing on it today. But we take needed provisions, not complete shutdown. There's a big difference. And again, when you flatten the curve, I think people are still extremely worried about getting this because they think they're going to die. Like, people are panicking because they think they're going to die. They think it's Ebola. They think it's going to start. You're going to start bleeding from all of your different orifices, and we're going to be in a disgusting movie situation, like apocalyptic situation.
And I am so upset with the city of Tampa because they were floating the fact that they were going to shut the city down over the weekend, saying it was going to happen on Monday. And people just panicked again, trying to shop
business
and everything
owners.
else. And
business owners started to panic.
And that is the most upsetting thing about it. You don't even have the votes.
You had restaurants.
You were saying that you were going to shut down the entire city, so people panicked and started buying like crazy again. You caused another panic.
Yeah, but you couldn't buy guns this weekend anywhere.
That's a whole other issue.
But you had restaurants who were literally trying to liquidate all of their food inventory because they thought that they were going to be shut down as of Monday. And these are the kind of consequences that we're talking about. And they couldn't care less about these small businesses.
Well, not just that they couldn't care less, is that there's again, go listen to the calls, go listen to the conversations, because now they're one thing that's good that's happening out of this is that they've done a public Facebook Live like we're doing now, and the engagement, they probably had more engagement on their Facebook Live video today than they have of any county commission,
Yeah.
video that's happened in history, because it's the first time they actually did it on Facebook Live, I think. So again, that is good. I like that.
And I have a question about with Hillsborough County going and shutting this down. I really hope, because we already know that they don't have a plan when it comes to, how we're doing this or what they're looking for to end it. But also, who is going to end up paying the people of Hillsborough County for this? Are they going to sit there and rely on the federal government to do it, or do they have a plan to get money into our hands?
They're pointing you to the state bridge loans right now, right? So every question that was asked today about small business in like the city,
but those are small businesses, not necessarily.
No, they're not.
W-2,
Exactly.
not just 1099.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, every small business owner I've talked to has said that there's no way that they're taking an SBA loan, even at zero interest, because the last thing that any smart business owner wants to do is go into debt.
Yes.
And this happens after every hurricane. I know during my time at Senator Rubio's office following the hurricane that hit Pensacola, when we were talking to small business owners out there, none of them wanted to take out the SBA loans because, again, they're already making slim margins as it is. They're already having to compete against these giants. And now you're going to tell them that they got to go and take on debt? They're not going to do it, even at zero interest.
I think it's a good option. I think it's a good option to offer people bridge loans at 0% interest. I do think that's a good move financially.
Yeah, but that's not going to
solve the problem, like you're saying.
And then the other thing is this, is that you're talking about essential businesses, right? And I'm sure that supermarkets fall under essential businesses because, again, they are continuing to provide the food and supplies and all those things, which, again, hello, people, supply chains are still A-OK. Relax, okay? Don't need to hoard the chicken. And meanwhile, these supermarkets, I'm at, sitting at a supermarket in West Tampa just yesterday, and it's packed. There's nobody at the entrance monitoring who's coming and who's going, the amount of people inside the building. There's nobody monitoring whether or not the shopping carts have been cleaned. Nobody monitoring the
You need to go to Whole Foods because they wipe your cart down for you.
No, look, hey, Costco, as a matter of fact, also doing an amazing job wiping down all the shopping carts, controlling the flow of people. But again,
and that's what China did.
These other supermarkets are not doing that. And if they're going to stay open, then that defeats the purpose of a lockdown to begin with.
Yeah, and that's what China did that actually helped them help them bring the new cases down to zero, was that they actually monitored who was coming in and out. Well, yeah, I know.
Yeah. Maybe, we'll see.
Maybe, but you know what I'm saying. Well,
Yes.
I do think the virus will end up resurging. But as a whole, though, it wasn't just a complete isolation. It was that they, monitored the flow of people coming in and out of stores, and they had testing for as many people that needed it. And it's the fact that we don't have any of that in place is so frustrating.
So I guess
also everything you hear out of China is a lie
Yes.
to begin with.
Yes.
The only thing I would
Your
ever
point still
trust is
stands.
South
I could have said South Korea. I could have said South Korea.
I would rather take
but-
South Korea because
Yeah.
China's been lying about GDP for the last 10 years.
Yeah, I should have said South Korea.
So also, I will say this because I don't even want to spend more than 10 seconds on this. It's not racist to call it the Chinese virus.
Oh,
it's not
no,
racist
not
to
at
call it the
all.
Wuhan virus. It's not even one of our topics today because it's not racist. It came from Wuhan. Called the Wuhan. I don't like Chinese virus as much as I like calling it the Wuhan virus. I think of that, or even, again, whoever you want to call it, it's not racist.
It almost sounds like the
Wu-Tang
Wu-Tang virus, which is much cooler.
Wu-Tang
Yeah.
virus would be cool.
They don't
is
need that
way
kind of
cooler.
bad brand.
At the end of the day, China should be completely held responsible for the epidemic that's occurring right now. The fact that they lied to the entire world for 3 weeks to a month, throwing
Months,
doctors into prison because of what was going on, destroying test samples. So the fact that we can't even know where this started, it's all China's fault.
I think
Not the people, the government.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think that's a very important point because, again, the reason why the left is sitting around calling Trump racist and things like that is because they're acting like it's like towards all Chinese people. No, it's towards the Chinese Communist government.
Yeah, we're not.
That's who people are mad
They
about.
know better. They're just using it as political hate, and it's
Yeah.
stupid.
We're not blaming the 1.4 billion Chinese people for the virus at all. We are blaming the Chinese government for what they did.
Yeah.
And for not handling it.
All right, so we're going to wrap up today's show on this topic to squeeze it in here before we call it a night. Insider trading under the coronavirus. I said what's funny about all of this is that we're all very divided about who to blame in regards to leadership and the handling of this crisis. But the one thing that everybody seemed to rally behind was the fact that there seems to be a lot of insider trading going on in Congress. As I think about 4 or 5 congressmen, senators all got caught moving their stocks in quite significant numbers
Yeah.
right before everything went down regarding the coronavirus. And again, I think it's kind of a bipartisan agreement that something needs to be done about this, guys.
Yeah, I think that when it comes to this issue, right, like the optics are as bad as it possibly can get, by the way. Like Republican and Democrat, like we are the Tampa Bay Young Republicans. We are the Florida Federation, like National Young Republicans. We will throw the Republicans under the bus that if they are insider trading on information and then lying to the public about how, what the status of the administration
if
is.
It's true that they
allegedly
themselves called their people to short stocks and everything, then yes, that's true. There are some, one of the female senators from, I think, Georgia has said, and I think she's right because her husband is the head of the New York
Okay,
Stock
but
Exchange.
time out. Should that even be allowed? I mean, her husband is the head of the New York Stock Exchange, and she sits in Congress. That's a conflict of interest.
They're senators right now. They're married to the leaders of banks and large insurance
So
companies.
here's what I'll say.
That doesn't make it any better.
Yeah, but it is what it is.
Here's
Democrats
what I'll say
and
about
Republicans.
This. In the situation, again, like in the court of public opinion, these guys are all guilty, right?
Oh,
They're all
yeah.
guilty.
Right
when
away.
it comes to a like actually going and having to face like maybe a lawsuit from this or anything like that, they're gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Like they probably did not do anything illegal. Does that make it morally right? Does that make it right? No. But again, there's a lot of loopholes within the way that they're able to trade that, again, it needs to be addressed. And it's something that maybe is going to come out of this entire epidemic that is good, is maybe reform on congressional trading.
If it is insider trading, then yes, they are going to go down because they changed the laws last cycle to make sure that people cannot do that anymore. But some of the senators have already said that they don't do anything, and they're not even told until 2 or 3 weeks after trades have already been made that something has happened. So that's why I'm saying, yes, you're right. Public opinion, they're screwed. But when it comes to legally, I think maybe 1 or 2 of them will go down because, of course, someone's going to make a phone call and they're going to find out.
Yeah, legally, the key difference is if they called their financial advisor and told them, hey, I got this information that the public doesn't know.
If you roll over to your husband and say, like, who's the head of the New York Stock Exchange, here's what I got briefed about this week.
He's also the person that doesn't trade his own stocks. Again,
I don't know about you, Jake, but I roll over to my significant other. I roll over to my significant other, and I'm like, sell.
Well, if you had $1.6 million in an individual stock, you might.
I will fall on this knife briefly.
You go ahead.
I don't know.
Due process. It needs to be investigated,
Yes,
and I think people need to be exonerated or exposed as being not terrible people if this is in fact innocent. So common knowledge was the stock market is pretty unsteady at the end of January.
Yeah.
This happened after common knowledge was like, this is iffy. So there's 50% chance. Do you bet on it being good or do you bet on it being bad?
Well, I guess that what people...
I haven't called it bad.
The issue is that people feel like, they had the opportunity to get this information before anyone else and had the opportunity to go and make a move on it while other everyday Americans were left to suffer and to watch their own investments crumble. However, I do think it's really difficult to sit there and just go, okay, I'm going to watch my investment completely fall.
That's why it's going to take reform.
Yeah, you have to close the loophole so they can't do it.
You have to
it's
either
absolutely illegal.
You need to it's going to come out of this at some point. But again, when you have Senator Burr, I believe his name is, he was the one that came out and gave a different answer to a bunch of private investors beforehand and said things are really bad, basically, like, get ready. And then he came out publicly and said, like, no, things are not that bad. But so when you have those kind of conflicting information,
you're misleading the public.
The public, and then you're trading differently. So again, like, there's some real conversations that we're gonna have on later podcasts. No matter what the party. And then Dianne Feinstein, talk about her now. She's been terrible for a long time. So again, I hope somebody runs against her and has a pretty strong race in California over there on the Republican side. Good luck.
But it's not that we needed confirmation, right? I think everybody, unfortunately, deep down, they knew that this is how you had people who were, living an average income. Some of them obviously had made wealth through other ways, but they were coming out millionaires and in some cases even billionaires out of Congress after serving in Congress. And these guys who have money and go into it realize that obviously there's not much worth it there unless you're on some sort of a power trip. But these guys should come in and leave wealthy, and then it seems like every year they're in office, their net worth just multiplies.
What? Bernie Sanders has 3 houses? What? What does that mean? mean?
Yeah. So I guess I think
Human right.
yeah, I don't really know how much more we can say on it right now. Again, like you said, give them their due process. Like
but
let them. They're not gonna face any sort of charges from this because I guarantee they did it all legally. Again,
Very on the line.
Optics and what you should be done and what is morally right is two different things, and these guys are totally screwed politically.
I say 1 to 2 of them have to resign because of it, because it is actual insider trading. I say the rest did it legally, but I will call it now. 1 or 2 will get the axe.
Yeah. Final thoughts.
Yeah, let's go ahead and run down the table again. Thanks to BizPac Review, Conservative News Today, Tampa Bay Young Republicans. We had a great show. Again, please leave us comments, questions. Let us know what you think about the show. We appreciate you watching. We'll do this every Monday night, 7 o'clock. It's called The Yard Sign. Follow us on all the social media platforms, and you can download the audio version of the show on all the major podcast platforms, Google, Apple, and what's the other one? Spotify. There we go. Thank you so much. See, that's what I have you guys around here for. All right. Final thoughts. Let's start with Michelle. What do you think? Timeline. How much longer are we dealing with this?
I think we have about 2 to 3 weeks before people are frustrated and aren't willing to deal with this anymore. That if you're healthy and you're struggling, I don't think people are going to put up with this more than about 3 weeks. And especially without a plan. My final plea is City of Tampa, Jane Castor, Kathy Castor, please come up with a plan. And
shutting everything down is not a plan.
Show us. Yeah, tell the people that what your plan is and why we're doing this. Why are we shut down? What are you looking for? Like, what do you want to see what do we have to do in order for things to open back up? That's what we want to know.
Yep. All right, Anibal.
I would like to give kudos to the other 2 mayors that were on the call today. Andrew Rose. I told you I was going to do Andrew Rose and from Temple Terrace, and Rick Lott from Plant City. Their input at the precise moment when they did gave such levity to their argument of like, who do you know that's congregating? Because everyone in our cities are locked down. Yep. Schools are locked down. Churches are locked down. Everyone's already only going out for the essentials. So what's the point of this particular move? And by them saying that, I truly believe that's the reason why it didn't get voted on, and it didn't get a second twice. So go online, listen to the conversation fully, realize what we're talking about, and how scary a moment it was when these conversations were had. That it was there are only 8 people voting, and that's all the mayors of Hillsborough County. That's Temple Terrace, Tampa, Plant City, 2 county commissioners, Sandy Merman and Kimberly Overman, Mike Miller.
Overman voted with Castor.
No, that's what I'm reading out the people the 8 people that are allowed to vote. Chad Chronister, I give you props also, even though I wasn't happy with the position that he had. I did give him props because as a police officer and the person that's going to be in charge of whatever this group decides, you kind of have to be neutral. He voted for just the motion going forward when it came to curfew, and not the motion going forward in regards to the stay at home. But
again, they're going to re-vote on
discuss curfew.
No, they're going to vote curfew on Thursday, and then they're going to talk about the stay at home next week. So we bought ourselves another week. So our goal is to make sure that they know how upset we are, that they should not move forward with this.
So I guess final thoughts from me. I have a few. Is that one, again, thank you so much to BizPac Review, Conservative News Today for hosting our show. The Young Republicans National Federation, who is trying so hard to put on a cyber conference this week because we were all supposed to be in D.C. Dan Crenshaw is speaking right now over us, which is taking away some of our audience. That's fine. He's doing a great job. I'm sure he's doing a great job. So thank you guys to them. And then my final thoughts, I want to go back to what I said a little bit earlier in this podcast, which is I want you to take time to evaluate like where you're coming from based on the situation you're currently in, right? So, if you're looking at this like, we need to shut everything down, health is the most important thing, wonder to yourself, why do I think that? Is it because maybe I'm older, maybe because I'm retired, maybe because I feel safe in my current position? And then if you're like us who are like, why are we shutting things down? You look at it from the same position of like, well, we're not worried about the health impacts, we're worried about the economic impacts, and just be self-aware of where you're coming from with this position. And then again, to our local leaders, to our state leaders, to our national leaders who watch us talk about this stuff, come up with a plan. I don't know how many times we have to say it. Like, again, if our goal is to flatten a curve, what are we trying to do here? Give us an answer and give us a plan. And again, hold steady to the people who are facing public pressure, because right now the one thing that I am seeing consistently is that nobody wants to make a decision here.
Yes.
Everybody wants to pass the buck along to somebody else. They don't want to be the one that's blamed or even become the hero out of the situation. They are all very, very timid in their actions right now, and we need real leadership is going to come out of this, right?
Yes.
Like real leadership, people with actual opinions and strong opinions, and real leaders will emerge from this emergency around the entire country. And instead, right now, we have a bunch of very timid leaders who don't want to be in their position. You wanted the position for your title, and now when you have a real crisis in front of you, you don't want to do anything about it. And so, again, act swiftly, act boldly, and actually lead the cities, lead the states, lead the country, because right now that's not what we have. And act smart, yeah.
Wisely. We need wise counsel.
And leave toilet paper in the aisles, because I can't find any anywhere.
All right, real quick, very big thank you to Chris VerKuilen for our gloves. So Chris gets last word today. Go.
All right, so if we can get the link for that video in the comments so they can watch, I would love that, or in the description. Last thing, I think it's going to last 2 more weeks before people start freaking out. Then we relax restrictions, go back to normal life for 4 weeks. Then we have another wave.
You will come back. You will come to our side at some point. Right now, everybody's freaking out about the health aspects of this. In 2 or 3 weeks, when this has gotten to an economic crisis,
once the numbers come in and you start realizing the death rate is 0.5%, you'll be like, what the hell are we doing? Should we have gathered more information before we started doing this kind of stuff?
I'll start getting worried when they actually start regulating all the supermarkets and who comes in and who comes out, because right now, every morning before they even open the doors, it is a panic. It is a rush to the door. There's still a run on toilet paper, a run on chicken, eggs, milk, all the basic essentials. And I get it, folks, but our supply chains are good. They're solid. But until they get a handle on supermarkets, I'm not taking any of this any more seriously than I already have.
Almost 100%.
Gun stores are doing that.
Almost 100% of our food,
they are,
and the things that we need in our grocery stores is almost all produced, made, created, all here in the United States. There's very little when it comes to food and everything else.
America, you will make it through this. We will. Seriously, I'm totally serious right now. America, you will make it through this. We will make it through this. We will have. There will be issues. There will be problems. It's going to be bad for the next month or so, but we will make it through this, and we'll be stronger, and our economy will bounce back, and our health will bounce back, and we'll be better for it.
If I can't find my chocolate milk, I'm going to be pissed again.
There's plenty of chocolate milk.
Two last things. One, plea to our elected leaders. Please don't take the politically expedient path of doing the safest thing. Think about the economic ramifications and what people's lives are going to look like after this if they are alive afterwards. Last thing, if you're wearing gloves and you want to actually have those gloves do something for you, degloving is an important procedure. So you want to pinch your cuff, pull forward so the glove folds inside out, and then the nasty stuff is not in your hands anymore.
We're out.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Vote.